Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Skylar Victoria Stark. I am the school board representative for Shorecrest and the entire east side of Shoreline, and I'm a graduating senior.
What is your role as the student representative on the school board? What do you do?
My main role is to represent and speak for the students all over the district, but mainly those from Shorecrest, Kellogg, and all of the primary schools that feed into us. The school board has three roles. The school board does budgets, they do policy. Policy then gets turned into procedure, which is what actually like affects their day-to-day lives. And then they also hire a superintendent. An example of policy would be revisions to our sexual assault and harassment policies, where we're going in and we're figuring out ways to revise these policies to still stay in line with the law, but also make sure that students are protected and that students are safer at schools.
How do the changes that the school board makes affect us students directly?
Yeah, it can take a while or it cannot take any time at all. There are things that we can see, like the adoption of some memorial curriculum and the pushing for and the increasing of ethnic studies classrooms, where now in both high schools we have dedicated ethnic studies classrooms, and we're seriously looking into making that, if not a required course, a highly recommended course. Another example would be when, due to COVID, we made sure that students weren't going to not graduate because they weren't able to participate in volunteer activity by removing the volunteer hour requirement from now, I believe, a total of 4 years of students. Well, one of the roles of the school board is in those emergency circumstances to allow for special things like that. And one of the main reasons why those things happen is because we have students who can go and speak to our needs on the school board, who can go and say, yeah, we need this lifted once again. So juniors, you're welcome.
So I've heard that you are working on a project to increase student voice on the school board, like adding
Yep.
another representative. What is that and how is it going to work?
Yeah, so it's a big thing. And it's designed to like last a long time. People have said it's like transformative generational thinking. I think it's common sense. But the idea is we want to have a senior rep and a junior rep from both high schools. Beginning of next year, we should be starting the process of finding a junior representative. At that time, it'll be someone who's currently a junior, but in the future, it's going to be selected at the end of your sophomore year. That person will serve for 2 years. The first of those years is going to be a learning phase. In contrast, because you've now gotten a year, when you become the senior representative, you will have a bit more responsibility weighing on you. For one, the senior school representative under this new framework will be the person to kind of present our school externally. They will be empowered to not just be a conduit through which students speak, but to speak authoritatively on what students need, what they desire, what they're feeling. Instead of having to go run an Instagram poll, when you speak, your words will carry the full weight of as if 5,000 or more students are saying that. That's really powerful. To complement those changes, there will also be a new committee for school board representation, which we focused on making sure that every student in the district is able and even willing to give their perspective to the representatives so that they can best inform the board and they can best act on these things. So altogether, it would amount to the biggest expansion of student voice and really student power that this district has ever seen, putting us back on the forefront of school districts around the state, where our student reps in years past were more of these glorified figureheads, are now moving towards something where they're basically local politicians, with a lot of the same weight and responsibilities that has, but also a lot of the incredible opportunities. Being able to speak with senators, having that be your job, being able to go to conferences, both in the state and nationally, as well as having the school make sure that all those things work with your course load. They'll be very flexible with you. You don't have to worry about that.
Why do you think it is so important to increase student voice in this way?
Well, because I've seen how beneficial it is. Because I know that, because I've seen how when students get involved in a problem, we make headway. The walkout for sexual assault and harassment that happened in December, well, many think it was a flop or they don't care. In reality, they all cared a lot. And I made sure by being in the room, by raising the issues, that now a counselor dedicated to extreme trauma, including rape and sexual assault, is on the top of the hiring list for when we get the money from the state to do it. These kinds of things, having dedicated student voice built in, means that the most disenfranchised population in Washington state, minors, people under the age of 18, have some say in how their educational careers go. It's your life. It really is. And you should be able to control as much of it as possible. Granted, most people probably don't want to have to be fully involved. And that's why having someone like the school board representative is so important. By making sure that a lot of those responsibilities are offloaded onto them, you have the person who will fight for you, the vanguard at the front of everything, and someone who will elevate voices when possible. It really is transformative. And with these new changes, I'm excited to see how much more transformative it can be.
Why should someone volunteer to do this?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it? I can give you some answers that are a bit fishy, right? There's the public service, being called to lead. And while I think I felt that, I don't know. And I'm sure many other people don't know either. I think the real answer is a lot of things. One is college applications. You might think that ASB does or doesn't look good, but what definitely looks good is having a personal recommendation from the superintendent of your district. What really does look good is being known on a statewide or even a national scale. When people know you, not just from your college application, but because you actually did a thing that they know, it becomes a lot easier to get into schools. Another piece is simply the experience. I've learned a huge amount of things that may not be the most fascinating, but there's some satisfaction in knowing why a messed up thing is messed up. It's valuable. There's also an argument for personal growth and working in a more interesting, a very supportive, but also a environment where sometimes you have to make really difficult decisions, where sometimes you get to sit through awesome, fun meetings, but sometimes you get to sit through things that like are really awful. And but in the end of the day, that's the trade-off. So there's definitely a lot of value to the student who's participating. If you're thinking about signing up and you think, well, why do it? The real answer is because it's an opportunity to change things. If you're a person who looks around and sees problems, this is an opportunity to be surrounded with people who want to solve those problems and who want to hear from you on how to do that. This is an opportunity for someone who is just curious about things to be surrounded by some of the most knowledgeable folks around inane, obscure topics, and getting to actively engage with them. And if you're someone who's just chasing college apps, this is probably not the best choice, just like time to output. But if you think you're already going to be invested and that's the thing holding you back, I've been invited to multiple national conferences this year, and I've had to turn some of them down. That's the kind of thing that really can help. Saying, hey, I did this cool thing, and I did this other cool thing, and I did this third cool thing. And being in those kinds of leadership positions can really help. Then again, it's also an individual choice. If you think this kind of work is interesting the first place, or if you're called because there's a problem, then you're going to get a lot more. I think you might get a lot more out of it than someone else who fit into one of those groups that I described earlier. If you think that your workload's going to be a problem, I will give you my personal guarantee that the school will find a way. Whether that's individualized study, whether that's something else even more special, nobody will not be able to participate in this, will not be able to do this work because of problems with, having enough time for your schoolwork.
How big a time commitment is it?
It depends on how much you want to give. Depends on how it depends on how much you want to do. I would say it ranges from maybe 5 or so, 10 or so hours a week to however much you want it to be. I know I was probably on the higher end of that, but with a second person, one of the perks of that is you get to have some differentiated responsibility where the senior rep can delegate to the junior rep, which means that in the end, the time commitment is actually going to be lower. So if you're thinking about applying, if you are a current junior, year of 2023, you're thinking about applying, that's another big perk. And if you're currently year of 2024, keep an eye out for next fall when the flyers get posted, because this really is an exciting chance. If this sounds interesting to you and you want to get involved, on Tuesday, the 24th, during lunch in room 139, that's Miss Phillips' room, between the lunch lines and the bathroom, there will be a second info meeting. This is a very streamlined process because we're kind of getting down to the wire. So it's just it's just turning an application and answering a few questions to some very kind fellow students. And then you get it or you don't. No speech, nothing difficult, nothing fancy, just a regular old application interview. May 24th, lunch, room 139, Miss Phillips' room. It really is an exciting opportunity.